Kaaba stone, foundation stone, temple square /RAUQS /rock. Oil, Arabs, Islam, sacred geometry, Freemason automakers, highway systems, Romans, Mormons. The Kaaba cube and the black stone at Mecca described above show the coinciding relationship with the 11 Western states and the foundation stone under the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. The Kaaba, and the rectangle carved in the center of the foundation stone, and the location of the Mormon religion in Salt Lake City, all coincide at the center of their respective boundaries, and coincide precisely with each other when overlaid one upon the other. The Mormon religion was founded on Freemasonic guidelines, which are completely relative to Hebrew and Islamic Babylonian, Egyptian sun god worship. These guidelines are also in complete harmony with Roman Catholic, Protestant and all Christian denominational traditions and teachings, and the overlapping coincidences are by design and intent. This is the design and intent behind the Luciferian mindset of hypnotic trance-inducement, used to conjure up this world, and then to manipulate it to attract and maintain our focus away from reality onto this illusory three-dimensional space. With this in mind, consider that the Arab world is basically Islamic, which is, as mentioned, relative to Freemasonic thinking, and is what Freemasonic rituals and dogma are based on. The Islamic Arab world is also sitting on the largest reserves of oil in the world, and has become the wealthiest and the most controlled society on the planet. What made this part of the world so wealthy was the automobile and transportation industry, which is totally dependent on a constant supply of oil. Taking this notion to the next step, consider that Henry Ford invented the mass production assembly line, mentioned previously on p.18. Henry Ford was a Freemason, as was Walter Chrysler of the Chrysler Corporation, and Citroën of France. These were only a few of the Freemasonic, Islamic mass-producing assembly line initiators that spawned a system of trance-inducement through the transportation industry that was completely dependent on the use of oil to sustain the system. In turn, this oil was produced in the part of the world where the Freemason principles of sacred geometry evolved. What is clear is that the oil reserves of the Islamic, Arab world needed the automobile industry in order for it to flourish. The Islamic, Arab traditions and rituals of sun god worship are evident in the world today as the Islamic religion. However, the original sun god worship goes back to Babylon about 6,000 years ago. Because the Islamic/Arab/sun god worship part of the world needed to create an automobile industry in order for them to flourish, they had to establish the eventual Freemasonic organization, along with interrelated Judeo and Christian religious organizations that they could draw upon for membership. That would in turn inspire certain Freemasonic members to create a mass production assembly line system that would drive demand for their oil reserves and eventual wealth into what we're witnessing today, the creation of a one-world Islamic state, which is not a new world order, but simply the old world order in new illusory form. This is the final goal of the Luciferian agenda, and the so-called establishment of the kingdom of God on earth, devoted to the worship and judgment of Allah, which is, of course, the judgment of Allah. Working hand in glove, the original subliminal mind control elite of the Arab world, working in conjunction with the Hebrew elite, working in conjunction with the Christian elite, and then implemented through the Freemasonic movement, have manipulated a three-dimensional system of deception that has the appearance and illusion of reality. This was willingly adhered to by those who sought to worship the grand architect of the universe, in return for the promise of riches, control and worship in the coming kingdom age. This illusory 3D system has been introduced throughout the world, throughout these illusory centuries, preparing all of this illusory population we call humanity, for the great day of judgment, coming forth from a God that doesn't exist. All the while, with the express purpose of separating us from our original wisdom state of paradise. The original subliminal hypnotic trance inducement began thousands of illusory years ago in Babylon. The agenda has always been focused on producing the automobile industry, and the ultimate wealth and control this industry would play in the final push for total control of our original paradise state. The hypnotic principles espoused through the Freemasonic orders created the perfect mass production line systems, through their devotees such as Ford and Chrysler, and now, today, the ultimate calamity this was meant to cause has now become apparent. The subliminal suggestion indoctrinated into the automobile industry creators was simply an indoctrination instilled through mind control principles based on sun god worship, which has brought the three-dimensional world to the point of total control, based on Islamic, Freemasonic principles, which are now culminating in their Luciferian goal of total control and disconnection from our original wisdom state. The conjuring began in the Arab world. The conjuring needed an oil-based resource. The conjuring needed a new land to create a new mass-producing system. The conjuring needed mind-controlled puppets to create an oil-based product and system. The conjuring needed this system to create an environmental problem. This environmental problem only needed to be perceived to be based on the mass production system. This whole conjured-up system had to seem disconnected from the Islamic world even while reaping the wealth of the whole world in so doing. All of this conjuring and manipulation has one common thread running through the whole scheme. That common thread is the use of subliminal messaging and hypnotic mind control based on the principles of Babylonian, Egyptian principles of sun god worship. They are all working together as the elite of the world, on behalf of the Luciferian thinking egregore mindset. The Arab world, going back before Muhammad, were responsible for the sacred geometry thrust upon the world. The Arab world perpetuated the Luciferian mindset through the Freemasonic organization that ultimately created the United States of America. The ultimate goal of this newly formed country was to prepare a sacrifice that would stretch beyond the imagination of any sane person, thereby creating the illusion of some great God, with some holy purpose of divine cleansing that would ultimately implant the illusion that God is great. That Allah is great. That would leave no room for doubt anymore. As you consider the foundation stone under the dome of the rock, and how the shape of this stone is virtually identical to the 11 Western states, the concept of subliminal hypnotic trance-inducement stretching back to the ancient Arab world and Babylon, and that this cradle of civilization was used to conjure up this illusory reality, somehow, now seems more within the scope of probability. For this reason, the Freemasonic/Islamic/Mormon religious order took root in Salt Lake City, Utah. This religious order followed a long, winding, twisted, hideous path of lunacy and devastation throughout these illusory centuries. However, its ultimate goal and location were never in doubt, and the desired sacrifice is now in place. Interestingly, the automobile industry bailout of the big three automakers was $17.4 billion from the USA government, and $3.3 billion from the Canadian government. In the year of total control, 2008, or 88, this is a highly symbolic number, as the total is $20.7 billion. The number 20 equals 8, and the number 7 represents completion. Together, 7 plus 8 equals 15, the number of the so-called deity. Yet again, 20 plus 7 equals 27, which coincides with 3 on the third clock face, which is the pyramid shape of the deity. Of course, 3 times 3 equals 9, the number of the full dot. Then again, 3 and 3 equals 33 or 3 11s, which represents death. The amount of the bailout package of $20.7 billion is obviously instilled with symbolic importance. Keeping in mind that the automobile industry and the transportation industry in general relies completely on a road system and an oil-based economy, the importance of the interstate highway system of the USA is now put into clearer perspective. For this reason, the symbolism of what number highway passes through what location is highly significant. On the chart below, the I-15 passes right through Salt Lake City. 5 equals deity. The I-80 equals control passes through Salt Lake as well. Just to the south, I-70 heads east from I-15. The numbers 70 and 80 equals 150, or 15, the deity number, with a 0, 0 equals intensity. Just like the $20.7 billion used in the auto bailout, that symbolically represented 15, so too, do the I-15, I-70 and I-80 of the state of Utah. Strange, isn't, how these coincidences keep showing up? Of course, they have to show up, or there's no subliminal implanting of suggestion to create our illusory reality, and without this, the Luciferian system of hypnotic control has no strength. In similar fashion, the I-5, 15 and 8 pass through to Los Angeles and up through the Sacramento and San Joaquin valleys. This is totally by design, in preparation for the sacrifice. Magnificent road building systems dates back to the Romans and before. Romans equals Mormons equals Mormons. The Luciferian mindset has always been concerned with establishing trade routes by land or by sea, by camel caravan or by ship. Though it may seem that the road systems were developed primarily for more effective trade and commerce, and for greater mobility in times of war, the main purpose of developing complex road systems was to stimulate and manipulate the travel industry into existence, whereby the concept of space and time become accepted and recognized as real. The terms travel and transport carry within them the subliminal message of water sacrifice, which will be elaborated on when we proceed with page 34. For now though, the letters suggest TRA equals TWA equals what, as well as the French number 3, or trois, which speaks of the deity pyramid shape. Twa equals sacrifice cross plus Roy's equals sacrifice rose. Utah State Temple. Salt Lake City equals soul sacrifice cross LA kill site. The American Dream. Suburbia. Oil and autos. On the chart immediately below, Salt Lake City is surrounded by other smaller cities. Together, a lot of these communities formed the greater Salt Lake metropolitan area. This pattern is repeated throughout North American metropolitan areas, and is referred to as suburbia. Before World War II, the population lived in either a rural setting, or within the city, and only the wealthy could afford to live outside the city, and commute to their place of business in the city on a daily basis. This was suggested to the masses as being an utopian, almost paradise type of lifestyle, and eventually came to be recognized as the American Dream. The American Dream was not a formal document, or following some strict code or description. It was simply the suggestion that, settling down, having a family, purchasing a home, buying a car, having a steady career, was about as good as life could get. In 1945, after World War II, the returning soldiers needed affordable housing. After the horrors of this war, the notion of the American Dream truly did seem to be paradise on earth by comparison. But how could so many thousands of soldiers afford to get their piece of this utopian dream? William Lovett, name origin, Jewish Levi priesthood, son of Abraham Lovett, a real estate developer, saw the success of the mass production assembly line used by Ford to manufacture automobiles, and so in 1947, used the same assembly line principles, where one worker would be confined to doing one task on each home, and thereby, the speed of construction and quality of the homes were far beyond anything previously available, resulting in affordable housing for the returning soldiers. The American Dream was now attainable, where the family, the home, the car, and a steady career were within reach of anyone. The Levitt idea of the American Dream was to create a suburb, and the first such suburbia was called Levittown, New York. It commenced in 1947 and was completed in 1951, with a total of 2,000 homes being built. Up to 35 homes a day were built to meet the demand. Now the ordinary everyday common worker could hop in his car and drive from his suburban dwelling to his job in the city, and commute home again the same day, and all of it was affordable. This was the American Dream come true. William Levitt soon gained the nickname, the Henry Ford of housing. Oh yes. Did I mention that they could now drive their cars to work every day? Well, this takes oil. All of a sudden, the demand for oil skyrocketed, as all of the suburban families needed the gas to do the daily commute to the city to their job. Yet again, the Arab world, with their massive oil reserves, were the direct recipients of the American Dream and utopian lifestyle. Just building these massive suburbs took huge amounts of energy to construct in an incredibly short period of time. Once constructed, the whole design was to use an incredible amount of oil-based products to keep the commute to the city running smooth. All the while the elite of the Arab world, with their sacred geometry sun-god principles of hypnotic control, were the financial recipients of this dream. As if that weren't enough, the American Dream then included plastic in everything we use in day-to-day living. Even that dreaded fabric called polyester was made from oil. And all the while the Arab world was reaping massive benefits from the American Dream. The cities of North America and the suburbs are all laid out and planned according to Freemasonic principles, which are sacred geometry principles developed in the Arab world. Even the lowly thing called the acre is 66 feet x 660 feet, and was used by Freemasons to chop up and measure the whole United States of America in preparation for the development of this real estate suburban American Dream. Freemasons build the cities, build the suburbs, construct the laws in the courts, and are the inspiration behind all that is the American Dream. And all the while the Arab world reaps massive profits from every Freemasonic concept developed to promote the American Dream. There's truly something fishy about Mecca, and Mormons, who are Freemasons. What this suburban building scheme was meant to do, was to consolidate large populations of humanity into centralized areas, in very specific geographical locations. The majority of the largest populated areas are located in regions of very low elevation, well within reach of any rising sea levels. This was all by design. Look at New York City. Right at sea level. Chicago, the same elevation as Michigan Lake, and built on a flat water table. Los Angeles is right at sea level. Seattle is right at sea level. New Orleans. The best example of what occurs when you're situated at sea level and a bit below. This has been done on purpose, by design, by subliminal hypnotic mind control foisted on the Freemasonic puppets who gladly serve the gods of the Arab and Islamic world, and their sacred geometry principles of mass trance inducement. With this to consider, It makes sense why the Bin Laden families were the only ones allowed to fly out of the United States the day after the World Trade Center attack, when all other flights were grounded. The Arab world controls the American dream, and the puppets perpetuating that dream state. This explains the close business ties that the Bush family has with the Bin Laden families, as they are working hand in glove to prepare and bring to fruition the sacrifice of the American dream. American equals aim or C, I can, which is to say AC I can dream equals death or R or water AM, which is to say death water I am. The Great Salt Lake Desert next to the Great Salt Lake is the location of some of the world's fastest land speed records and the test site of some of the most advanced automobile technological improvements. In other words, the Great Salt Lake Desert and the Salt Flats are a shrine to perpetuating the illusion of time and space by advancing the trance-inducing portation system. The Salt Flats are part of the Holy of Holies, as is the Great Salt Lake and the Mormon Temple. Salt Lake City Lac Hill, Temple Mount Jerusalem, Mormon Temple Square /RAUQS/ROCKS. The foundation stone in Jerusalem is located under the Islamic Dome of the Rock. This in turn, is located on the Temple Mount. The word mount refers to Mount Moriah, the larger portion of the rocky mount that rises to its near highest point at the exposed portion, or the relief portion, under the dome of the rock, and which is referred to as the foundation stone or foundation rock. The term Temple Mount really means Temple Rock. The Mormon Temple, on the other hand, is located on what is called the Temple Square in Utah. Temple Square includes the Salt Lake Temple, the Salt Lake Tabernacle, the Salt Lake Assembly Hall, and the Seagull Monument. The Temple Square is located on a 10-acre site, 40,000 square meters. This in turn is symbolic of the exposed relief portion located on the Rocky Mountains, as it lays high up in the Rocky Mountains at 4,226 feet above sea level. Exactly as the foundation stone is part of the exposed relief portion of the Rocky Mount of Moriah. Temple Square equals Temple RAUQS equals Temple Rock equals Temple Rock. The words Temple Square really mean Temple Rock. This is the same meaning as the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and which is recognized as such by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. This is the rock of the judgment of Allah, the judgment of Allah. The words Salt Lake City refer to this very notion. Salt equals soul or sun, T equals sacrifice, cross Lake equals Los Angeles, and K equals kill, as well Lake equals Look equals Col equals Cull equals Cull equals kill as in Lookness, and is a Freemason sacred symbol of control as in the term lock. A lake symbolizes death and control with water. City equals site equals site equals sea equals sea. Together, the suggestion is that the sun god will sacrifice Los Angeles in a color of humanity with the use of water, thereby taking control. Of course, Los Angeles is just symbolic of the Western world culture that has spread to the whole world, and thereby, the judgment of Los Angeles is the judgment and desired color of those portions of the world who might be deserving. On the satellite image below, notice the Temple Square with the silver tabernacle dome-shaped building to the left of the temple. The world-famous Mormon Tabernacle Choir and their famous tabernacle pipe organ are located in this building. Tabernacle equals ta or time, and ba equals bear sacrifice, sea bear or sun bear, n equals in or I, cle equals kill or cull or lake, choir equals rio, ch equals rock, pipe organ equals pi or 3.14 or simply 3 and or in equals 3 Orion, the three kings of Orion's belt. Penis nicht gibst.